pozdravljeni v videu, kjer bomo danes delali Scary Stories part 2, tako da. Zdaj sem čisto eno random zbral. The bedroom store.
So this happened a few months ago. I'm 26. I was at JFK Airport in New York with 5 friends. All of us were about to fly down to Florida to spend the week in a beach house. We had a few more minutes to kill in the airport before we would board our flight, and I really had to go to the bathroom all of a sudden. I was baffled to see a line out the door for the bathroom. I noticed a janitor walking by, so I asked her if there was another bathroom nearby that wouldn't be so crowded. She laughed and told me she shouldn't really be telling people, but there was another bathroom past the door she was pointing at, down a narrow flight of stairs and to the left. I thanked her because she was extremely nice and followed the direction she gave.
Oh ja, to tukaj izgleda nice. Poglejte, kako ga gleda. Gleda ima glenot v svoji goši, ne vem, česa noš in da ga v kar zaklala.
Me. Sure enough, behind that door that no one would think to open was a small stairway that led down to a really poorly lit, skinny hallway. It was so narrow that if 2 people were to pass by each other, one person would have to stand against the wall to make room.
Okay, tle jih ni nobenega.
I found the bathroom right away. The door was extremely heavy and hard to push. Also, the lights were on inside of the bathroom, and it was filthy in
In
there.
kako ugotovil, da glih
It was
to
evident that
kopalnica?
nobody ever really came in there to
WC.
clean. Now, this is a little embarrassing to mention, but when I go to the bathroom in public places, I always try to make sure nobody else is around to possibly hear me going. So after checking the stall to see that it was unoccupied,
Oj.
I went back into the hallway for a second to take a look down both directions. To the left, there was somebody standing at the end of the hall, in a dark, unlit section of the hallway. It was a
Kdo bi to
disturbing
počel?
sight to say the least. All I could do was awkwardly pull my head back into the bathroom and try to pretend we didn't see each other. I went into the stall and just stood there biting my fingers for a minute.
Jaz osebno, če bi bil tam, ne bi šel nazaj v WC in se fucking zaklenil, da bom prišel, pa me zaklal, ampak bi pač tekel stran in šel v drugo državo, stisnil letalam. Fuck boy.
Dreading the thought of that door opening. And of course it did.
Oh.
I saw the man's black shoes under the stall door as he walked to the stall next to mine. He shut the door,
prosim,
and then
ne.
there was silence.
A je to ista zgodba, kakor tam, da zdaj se igral z njim, tako najbolj?
No sound of the man unzipping his fly or sitting down, nothing. I realized I didn't really have to go anymore, and went to unlock the stall door. That's when I looked up and saw the man's head
fuck,
peering
to
over the
negosím
stall,
zad.
looking at me. I nearly had a heart attack as my scream.
Oh, fuck. Kaj da fuck je to?
Stall door. That's when I looked up and saw the man's head peering over the stall, looking at me.
What the fuck? Kakšen človek.
I nearly had a heart attack as my screams bounced off the walls of the tiny bathroom. I ran back up those damn steps and out that door, and then casually walked back over to my friends. I was breathing heavily, but nobody seemed to notice. I didn't tell anyone just because it was embarrassing, and I didn't want my friends to make fun of me in any way. I know, I guess that seems stupid now. We went on to have our Florida vacation and all had a good time. Of course, the thought of that creepy man haunted me every night that week.
It was November of 2006. I was a 16-year-old kid living
2006, takrat sem se jaz rodil. Aba ne. No, pač gledaj.
in the town of Altoona, Iowa. I went to bed early one night because I had to work the early shift at McDonald's. As I slept, I had a dream that I was running through downtown Des Moines, but I wasn't on a jog. I was running from something. As I ran around the corner of a building,
Zakaj da fuck ta tip teče tako, kakor da bi imel 5 litrov vode v čevljih? Tako. Ja, tak je life, bobač.
I came face to face with my pursuer. A tall man wearing a trench coat and a top hat stood in front of me. The only thing visible of his face was his eye.
Koliko je tip velik, če je ta tip recimo 1,50 m, 60 m, pa če je skoraj še enkrat, ok, ne, če je brat skoraj še enkrat večji od njega, kako mora biti pa ta tip velik, to mora biti kakšen košarkaš ali pa kaj, te scene.
Eyes. They were abnormally large with black pupils, and it looked at me as if it wanted something. After what felt like hours, he reached out his bony hand, as if he wanted me to go with him. I woke up violently from my dream, and after catching my breath, I peered around my room to see if I was safe. As I stood up from my bed, I noticed that I could see.
Tako sredi noči, ko imaš nočne more in se zbudiš, a gre kdo od vas vstane? Jaz osebno ne, jaz nazaj zaspim. In pa sanjam o ženskah. Upam, da bom sanjal o ženskah. In pol je to nočna mora za žensko.
My breath. Feeling confused, I checked my window. It was latched shut. I then walked over and checked my vent. I could still feel warm air coming from it. As I sat back down on my bed, I tried to figure out what exactly was going on. That's when the figure from my dream appeared at the foot of my bed. I scrambled back to my head.
In kako ta tip tako, 5 minut ni videl tipa, ki je stal pol metra pred njemu in velik je bil do stropa. Tako. To moraš biti slep. Da tega ne vidiš.
What do you want? I asked, trying to hide the shakiness in my voice. With the same bony finger, it pointed at me. Growing up in a religious home, I believed what I was looking at was a demon. I told the creature to leave. It just waved its finger at me, and with a low voice, it spoke to me. Never leave. Always here. The creature then screamed loudly and disappeared. A feeling of nausea came over me, and I vomited on my floor. The last thing I remember was cleaning myself up and waking up to my alarm. It's been about a month since I had seen the top hat wearing man in my bedroom. The Christmas season was in full effect. My parents weren't home because they got invited to some kind of event, so it was only me and my 3 sisters at home. I had to wake up early in the morning for work, so I decided to go to sleep. I rested my head on my pillow and closed my eyes. Not even 30 seconds passed until my sisters burst into my room and started singing obnoxious songs. This, of course, made me very angry, but I thought if I ignored them that they would leave me alone. This was not the case. As I pulled the blankets over my head, I started to feel the same cold feeling that I had in November. As the obnoxious singing subsided, I lowered the blanket below my eyes and saw the man standing in the corner of my room. In one swift motion, he charged towards me, and I blacked out. When I finally came to, I found that my sisters had locked themselves inside the bathroom. As I knocked on the door, they told me to go away. I asked them what happened, and all they could say was Mom and Dad were on their way home. I looked down and saw that my hand was slightly bloody. Holes were in the bathroom door.
Ta tip ima 4 prste. Kako zanimivo.
And a broom was
Klezuni se ne derejo.
sticking out of the wall. I then walked into the living room and found that there were knives stuck into the wall as well. The same wave of nausea passed over me, just like in November, and I threw up again. As I was cleaning up, my parents walked through the door. My father immediately walked over to me and gave me a good beating. Then he sent me to my room. I went to bed crying, not from the beating. I was crying because of the confusion. I had no idea what was going on. The next morning, my sisters reluctantly sat next to me and told me what had happened. They said I got angry and chased them down and tried to hurt them. They said my eyes were red to the point where they thought I was bleeding from them. They said I sounded like a different person. In 2011, that was the last time I saw the top hat wearing man. I just moved into a new apartment, and after a long, stressful day of unpacking, I took a shower and got ready for bed. As I started to drift off, I could feel that cold feeling again. I lifted my head and saw the man standing in front of me. The man's eyes were red now.
Ooh, red eyes.
With a low voice, just like on that November night, it looked at me and said, "Never leave. Always here."
Okay, no. So what's next, suckers?
Steve, I was working late.
Okay.
I'm 23. I work in New York City and commute home every day on the train. Since I'm one of the younger ones in the office, I got stuck with one of the worst shifts, so I wasn't able to get home until 5 o'clock. My family had already left.
Watch these. Watch these.
Obišći sonček, obišći svijet.
Ryan and Jesse. We were all dressed as the Super Mario characters. I was Luigi since I was the second tallest. Ivan was Mario since he's short and buff. Not that Mario was buff. Jesse was Waluigi because he's freakishly tall and skinny, and Ryan was Wario because he's just really fat. So they were the perfect group costumes for us. We live in a very non-congested suburban neighborhood with a decent amount of space in between houses. On Halloween, that's the worst thing ever. Less bang for your buck. We were trick-or-treating for hours, way past dark, and eventually came the time when most trick-or-treaters were heading home. My feet started to hurt, and I had to constantly switch arms for holding the now 10-pound pillow sack of candy, but we planned on going until our bags were completely full. A lot of the houses by now weren't answering anymore. It was probably past their cutoff time for giving candy to trick-or-treaters. Approaching our next house, we saw a purple bucket on the stoop, which was the best feeling ever. I was the one to get close enough to realize it was empty, which was the worst feeling ever. I turned around when I heard a knock at the window of the house. We all looked at the window. Couldn't see anyone, but heard someone call out, "Wait." The door opened, and an older man, late 40s, already balding, stepped outside. He told us to come inside so he can get us some more candy. I said we could just wait out here. He responded saying something along the lines of, "Nonsense, come on in, we'll get you your candy." Ivan stepped in and said, "It's all right. Come on, Dan, let's go." I told the guy to take care and apologized. He just stood there watching as we walked off, not saying anything.
Daddy.
I felt bad, but at the same time, that guy seemed like a creeper, and I figured I just dodged a bullet not going in there. If the story ended there, it wouldn't be scary, so of course, it didn't end there. We skipped a few of the guy's neighboring houses just to get further away, and continued on with our business. We were walking down close to the nature preserve now, so there weren't many houses around us. At this point, we were now walking back closer to Jesse's house. I noticed Ryan had stopped walking, and I turned around to see what's up. He said he heard someone moving from behind the trees in the preserve. Now, this was before everyone's phones had flashlights, so we couldn't just go searching in the woods for someone. Besides, we were just telling Ryan that it must have been a raccoon or something. You may think this is a bit of a cliche, but when things like this happen in real life, you always assume the more logical possibility. It's just natural. Why would we assume we were being followed? I had to put my arm around Ryan's shoulder and nudge him forward. A little ways down the street, me and Ivan picked up on the sound as well. When we all stopped, the sounds of the footsteps from beyond the trees stopped as well. Ivan yelled at the obvious stalker to go away, or we would beat the shit out of them. I knew he was just bluffing, though. I could hear the nervousness in his voice. The snap of a twig from beyond the trees triggered a fight-or-flight response in all of us. Me, Jesse, and Ryan all ran for it. Ivan was at first charging to attack, but he quickly followed after realizing we had all taken off. We ran down the dark street, and we all noticed the sounds of at least 2 or 3 pairs of footsteps crushing the twigs and leaves in the woods. We banked it hard right down Jesse Street when it finally came up, and ran straight for his backyard, entering his house through the back door. The first thing we did was peek out through his living room window. We couldn't see anyone. We all had to gather our thoughts and discuss what the hell just went down in his living room, when all of a sudden we heard Jesse's backyard gate slam shut. Jesse dove to turn off the lights.
Ampak zmeri ljudje pozabijo zakleniti zadnja vrata. Čeprav mi imamo toliko zelo veliko vrat, da bi vlomilec udaril v... Ne bi jaz toliko mogel hititi zakleniti vseh. Pa še ena so čisto rohnela, tako da komod prijete v naše bajte. Dobrodošli.
It was a click and a bang from down in the den. It was more than likely Jesse's back door. We all agreed to go down armed with knives and face them. Jesse turned on his back door light, but there was nobody out there. Just then the front door opened, and we all screamed like animals. Jesse's mom and sisters came rushing downstairs. They had just gotten home from their friend's little house party. We all rested assured knowing it was just them. Jesse explained what happened, but made it seem a lot less dramatic. Me and Ivan went home after that.
In starši ti pol nikoli ne verjamejo, ko poveš, kaj se ti je zgodil in da si skoraj umrl. Ali pa, ja, ne vem, kaj je bilo. Smo nekaj s takimi bedarijami.
Called it a night. At 12:30 a.m., I got a disturbing text message. It was from Jesse. It said, "It wasn't my mom." I texted back saying, "What?" He responded back quickly, saying,
Čeprav mogoče ta telefon je kar star, kva piše Motorola? Ok, mogoče ta firma res obstaja, ampak jaz ne vem za njo. Ja, tako je.
It wasn't my mom in the backyard. My finger slammed the buttons on my phone, responding back, "What do you mean?" There was a long pause before he finally told me that his mom and sisters said they never went in the backyard. I told him to immediately check the backyard from his upper deck. He had already done just that. He also told his mom everything, and she had already called the police. They didn't find anyone back there, but Jesse did mention the guy who invited us in while trick-or-treating. Nothing ever became of that, and nothing ever happened at Jesse's house again after that one Halloween night.
Ja, sveti Halloween, pa vsi se pobijajo. To je dosti dobro, ker sem že gledal. Ne vem. Gremo to gledati.
Would commonly go fishing in. It was nicknamed Daryl's Pond. I still have no idea who Daryl was or why it was called that, but nobody owned it, so people would once in a blue moon go fishing there as well. It was usually me by myself, though. I had dug a pole into the ground where I would tie a noose to and from my small kayak. I waved at him and gave him a smile. He hopped into a small boat floating by the edge of the pond and began to row over to me. As he got close enough where trying to speak to him wouldn't come off as obnoxious, I gave him a friendly, perfect day, isn't it?
tata bu ubal.
Yes, absolutely, he said. He didn't say anything after that, and I started to feel a bit awkward, as if I were obligated to keep some kind of conversation rolling now. So, you come out here to throw some lines? I asked. No, I don't actually fish. Oh. Well, it's never a bad day to relax on the pond, I said. He continued to row closer to me until his boat collided with mine, creating a big thud. I was genuinely uncomfortable now. I didn't feel threatened, just weirded out. I was only 24 years old. This guy looked like he was late 40s or 50s. There was an awkward silence. I tried to just act like I was focused on trying to make a catch, but by now that wasn't even on my mind. This guy was weird. I didn't know what he wanted, and I was uncomfortable being so close to him. I felt him looking at me, or at least in my direction, as I faced halfway to the opposite direction of him. I took a quick glance to my right. Yeah, he was staring at me. I decided to be ballsy and lock eye contact with him. After about 4 seconds, he looked away. So, where are you from? I asked him. Up there. He pointed behind himself, in the direction of the woodsy hill leading past the dirt road.
Yeah.
Oh, you live by Suffolk?
Some
I asked. No, I'm not, he said.
Besh.
What made you decide to come out here? I said. Why not? I continued to try and uncomfortably fill the awkward silences that kept coming up. His responses were dry. He didn't contribute anything to what was barely a conversation. He just sat there not doing anything with half a smile on his face, looking either at me or in my general direction throughout. I was creeped out. My heart was racing at this point. I'd go as far as saying that I was nervous for my life. We were surrounded by trees in all directions, in the middle of a pond. I started to row a bit closer to land, but in a very low-key kind of way, trying to play it off as me just trying to find a better spot to find some fish. I was horrified when I saw he was following me. What a great day, huh? I felt a shake in my voice. I got close enough to the edge of the pond where I finally told the man, I think I'm going to call it a day. I turned to see his reaction. He was still staring at me, but his smile was gone now. I can't let you leave, he said. He lifted his flannel to expose a handgun sticking out of his jeans pocket. As soon as I could process what I was looking at, I dove out of the boat for land, ran the whole half-mile uphill through the woods back to my house, and locked every door and window as soon as I made it home. I pulled down the blinds to the dining room window, leaving it open just a crack for peeking outside undetected. It started to get dark out, and I left every light in the house off, still peeking out to the front yard, making sure I wasn't followed. The time came when I finally decided I wasn't followed. I realize now, like you, that not calling the police immediately was a huge mistake. I kept my bedroom windows open to let the room air out. My bedroom was on the second floor, so I wasn't worried about being watched through the window. About half an hour after shutting the light and falling under the covers, I heard the sound of leaves crunching from outside. I sat up to hear it more clearly. It was definitely something walking around out there. Normally I would assume it was a deer or a bear, but after what just happened, I was still in paranoia mode. I sat up as still as a statue, except for my shaking out of fear, waiting as the sounds of the steps stopped. Hey buddy, you up there? Are you trying to sleep? Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you. I felt like 100 pounds just fell directly onto my chest. It was the same voice. I knew it right away. I didn't make a sound. I crept out of the room, quietly downstairs to the kitchen, and grabbed the phone, practically crawling on my way out to avoid being seen through the open blinds. I called 911 like I should have earlier in the temporary safety of my bedroom. I made sure to whisper into the phone, as I was still hoping that he hadn't yet heard or spotted me. 20 minutes felt like an hour as I sat behind my bed, waiting for the police to arrive in constant fear that I would hear glass breaking from downstairs, or a thud on the back door, or even just a voice again from down below my window outside. The police did a thorough investigation of the property in nearby woods, turning up nothing. They suggested I stay with a friend or a family member for a few days, and so I did. I never heard from or saw the man again, but I still moved a month later. I couldn't deal with the constant fear and paranoia of being watched through my windows. I feel much more comfortable fishing out by the bay now.
Cadê fucking lutou? Wait a minute, where is slow motion? There we go. Yep. Это live, bora. To jsme řekli. Ok, to pogledamo.
On Friday the 13th, my friends and I decided to plan a sleepover. So we decided to have it at my friend Marissa's house. So we were at her house and we had some dinner. It was really good. We actually had some masticholi. We were just sitting at the table talking, and one of my other friends, we'll call her Haley, she was like, oh my gosh, we should go play the Ouija board now, because they knew that I brought it. So I was like, okay, let's go. Let's go in the basement. It'll be like fun. So we're playing, and I start getting really freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get possessed, like, oh my gosh. Because I was so scared that, like, because we talked to this really mean ghost. I thought we were, but it was really spelling something else out. Tears are, like, streaming down my face, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, so I kept saying, like, I could see it. It was, like, in the mirror. It was really scary. So then I was like, we need to talk to it again to see what it wants. We talked to this ghost named Dan, and his wife's name is Gina, and he kept saying 40 cuts in the bathtub, and then like 790. We looked it up. It means love and like comfort. So we were like, do you want us to love you? And he said he has a daughter. And eventually we got this story that he had a daughter, and she was like kidnapped, and then she like killed herself, I guess.
Oh.
She died, and it was really, really sad. So we felt bad, and I kept wanting us to dig him up. And he said he was under the house. He was under the floor. So, like, I was getting really scared. And, like, he said the ghost girl's name was Erin, and she was 12, and she was turning 13 the next day. So we were like, do you want us to sing happy birthday? And he said yes. And we said at midnight. And he said no. And I said, what time? And he said 6. So I was like, oh gosh, we have to wake up at 6 in the morning. So then, like, everyone started getting creeped out. So we had to, like, stop because not everyone was, like, comfortable with it. So we stopped playing, and I put it away, and I was terrified. I was like, I'm not comfortable with some of the things he said. I was just, like, really upset. So I called my sister, and I was like, dude, this is what happened. And I told her the story, and I was like, I am so scared. I was crying. Like, it was bad. I was crying really hard, and I was like, I don't want to get possessed. So she's like, oh, it'll be okay. Just be glad that you said goodbye. I mean, you're still stupid. And I was like, okay. So I hung up on her because I was mad. And I just got so scared, and my anxiety got really bad that I was like, I can't sleep over. So I texted my mom, and my mom is like, okay, I'll come and get you. And my mom, she took me home, and she's like, leave that board in the garage. It is not coming in the house. So I was like, okay. When I woke up at 7, and I did sing happy birthday to Erin because I promised Dan that I'd sing at 6. So I sang happy birthday, and I'm good. I just don't like being home alone like I am right now. But that's my story of my scary Ouija board.
Ouija. Dobra, resnici pa sem tako odprto, hvala za ogled, upam, da ste uživali, še kdaj bojo mogoče ne glih scary stories, ampak od odkaj drugega, hvala za ogled in se vidimo v naslednjem videu, čau!